Hello there, welcome back to the Common Sense Guys channel. First of all, I'd just like to thank one of my colleagues that I work with very well and very often. We do a live stream at least twice a week, but he does one 3 times a week with one of my other colleagues. He is the Laughing Ogre, and he was actually the one who actually broke this story to me, actually, believe it or not. So I suggest that you watch his original video right here. Now, that being said, I have a slightly different take on this, so I'm going to go through what's actually happening. So without further ado, let's get into the video, shall we? I'm sure that some of you are aware of, this is Jonathan Pye's video that's playing in the background. If you can't see that, this is the Jonathan Pye video where he is outside the Scottish court, where he's talking about Marcus Meacham's, Count Dankular's conviction. Now, this video in itself has stirred up some controversy at this moment in time. Now, that's not to say that this is actually going to go forward or there's an investigation going forward. I don't want to create a false premise in this video, so let me set this up so it's absolutely perfect so everybody can understand it, rather than me trying to portray it as I feel that it could be. There is a gentleman that was online that did something as a social experiment. He reported Jonathan Pye as a social experiment to see how the police would respond. Now, bear in mind, the police at this moment in time that he's responding to or has contacted is not the Scottish police, it's not the Scottish law system, it's the Metropolitan Police. So this one means that it is the London Police. Now, with that being said, they make a response which is kind of scary. We'll get into the response very soon, because I don't want to misquote them. But it is kind of a we believe you straight away and we're on your side, where I've said this many times, justice is supposed to be blind. Yes, you can have sympathies for a victim and try and do something for the victims. Yes, of course you can. But don't just believe that somebody's done something wrong just because somebody says it. You actually have to have a look at the evidence and actually decide for yourselves. And obviously, as police officers, you're not supposed to decide for yourselves. You're designed to collect evidence and arrest people. But that's neither here or there in this instance. It is more of a case at this moment in time that, for me, I feel that this needs to be looked upon. And in fact, even so, I wish the mainstream media would actually report on it. Because the hysteria of anti-Semitism and the idea of not being able to speak certain points or certain things is kind of starting to get me really worried in my own country, to the point of, are professional satirists or comedians now not allowed to say certain things, and if they do, they're going to go to the gulags? I mean, prison. Is that what's supposed to happen? Is that what's supposed to happen in a free Western democracy? Or is it supposed to be the fact that we're allowed to debate and challenge those people's ideas and points? I mean, what do I know at the end of the day? I'm kind of dragging this out, so without further ado, let's get into this video so we can actually talk about the actual issues that are actually being talked about in this. So, as you can see, we're now on the Dangerous website, obviously one of Milo's media platforms at this moment in time. You have this sensationalized title of the story at this moment in time. UK police may investigate comedian Jonathan Pye for free speech joke. Now, the thing that I would say is scary about this is the fact that they would have done if the person that did this didn't do it for a social experiment and was actually willing to press the charges. As much as I would say I would like to see how interesting it would be to see Jonathan Pye go through the same points with more money and everything else like that, I'm not 100% sure I would want to see that. I don't think I would actually want to see the idea of free speech die and burn, as this would inevitably cause. But it's a story that we have to get into, it's a story we have to understand properly. So, with that being said, let's carry on, shall we? So, carrying on, as you can see, we're carrying on from the title of the story. Popular satirist and comedian Tom Walker, known by his alias Jonathan Pye, has been reported to the UK Metropolitan Police over a video he uploaded regarding freedom of speech. Again, another violation of free speech, even the fact of it being mentioned to the police. Though he was reported for a social experiment, the Metropolitan Police have supposedly taken the speech code violation seriously. In a screenshot uploaded to his Twitter account, an anonymous man can be seen sending a direct message to the Met, complaining that Walker made extremely offensive remarks where he imitated being a Nazi and satirized the Holocaust in a recent video. The video in question was a skit coming to the defense of the infamous Count Dankular case, which, again, is a case where we've stripped away all context away from what the meaning was behind the actual video. But yeah, whatever on that one. In which YouTuber Count Dankular, real name Marcus Meacham, was found guilty of a hate crime and faces jail time over a joke featuring his pug behaving like a Nazi. Potential jail time is potential. I honestly think that he will, with my own conjecture being put in. But not because it's a case of I feel that he's actually broken any law. I think it's more of a case of we're using this as a precedent, so more and more people can be put into prison for their ideas. So we'll see how that goes, hopefully. Meacham must reappear in Scottish court next month for sentencing. Yep, I mean, and this is a video that Jonathan Pye has done that has come to his defence, which technically isn't coming to Count Dankular's defence. It's more coming to the defence of freedom of speech and the fact of people realising how authoritarian the government is now becoming. And the fact that you can't tell a joke, even with the contents that is behind it, first of all, the context, it just makes you wonder what you can and cannot do and what you can and cannot say now, doesn't it? I suppose it's a case of whatever the government tells us to. But by definition, does that mean that we're living in a free society? No. Does that mean that we're now living in a governed society and one that tells us which we can and cannot say? Technically not yet. Are we living in a society, though, that can tell us what is classified as hate speech and what we're not allowed to talk about? That is a yes. That is a yes in the UK system in itself, where we have people banned from talking about different points of views and different points from religions. So, yeah, we definitely have that problem at this moment in time where we're not allowed to talk openly and freely without the government's censorship. So, as you can see, we've now moved on. It now comes to the point of, at Nimble Navigator 1, I've messaged the police about at Jonathan Pye News as an experiment. Apparently, it's just as dystopian as we thought. Obviously referring to stuff like 1984 and other such books of such ilk. The complaint goes on to say that as a Jewish person, not only does this cause unimaginable offence, but I believe breaches various hate speech laws that others have been rightly convicted for, possibly referenced in Meacham's court case. The man ends his message questioning as to whether Walker can be investigated for his offensive remarks, and we'll get into the actual Twitter exchange very, very soon. It's literally just underneath this little point, but I do feel that we need to talk about that. The fact that somebody just off of the street can go, I am offended and I want you to arrest that person because I am offended, is absolutely ludicrous to me. To the point where I could go down the street and say, I am offended by that white man wearing glasses, I want to put him into prison because I dislike people that wear glasses. Is that something that could happen? Well, if enough people agree with it, I suppose so. Because enough people are agreeing with this premise of saying that if you disagree with hate and things like that, then you should want these hate laws. And no, they're not hate laws, they're draconian laws that are designed and put into place so we cannot talk about what we want to talk about. For instance, the Islamification of different areas, the fact that churches are being put on fire, other such points that at this moment in time that we are not allowed to talk about. the overcrowding of schools, and no, not just because of immigration, but because the country in itself is not building any more schools and is taking schools away. Now, if you're adding 500 and something thousand people in every year for the last 5 to 6 years at least, then that at least adds up to 2.5 million people, at least. That's extra into our economy that just can't sustain. But yet we're not allowed to talk about those type of things because we then become the part of racists and bigots. The Metropolitan Police's response is worrisome, as they say it's understandable how this would cause distress, and urge for the anonymous tip to report the incident if they feel personally offended by the video. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go to the actual point, and we're going to deconstruct the actual conversation that has appeared and has happened. So let's have a look, shall we? And as if by magic, so we're now in the actual private DMs between Nimble and the Met Office, as in the Met Contact Centre, as you can see there, which is the Metropolitan Police. So reading across, as we now know that it was definitely a social experiment, so nobody get annoyed at the actual tweet, it was a social experiment. Hi there, a few days ago, an internet comedian, in inverted commas, made an extremely offensive remarks where he imitated being a Nazi and satirized the Holocaust. As a Jewish person, not only does that cause unimaginable offence, but I believe breaches various hate speech laws that others have rightly been convicted for. The man's online personality is known as Jonathan Pye. Here's the video and the link to the video, which will also be in the description box below. Please go and watch it. The offensive content starts at 3:50. I would like to know whether this will be investigated. Thanks. Now, we now know that Nimble's point in this was an actual point of a social experiment. So what he actually says here is absolutely bull, so to speak, because he's not actually offended. He's actually doing this as a point of, as I just said, a social experiment to see how the police would actually react, to gauge an experience of what would actually happen. Now, the main thing is the actual response. Now let's get into the actual response, shall we? Hi. It's understandable how this would cause a distress. So straight away, going on to the actual person's side, not the comedian's side. So actually going on to the person who is offended, and all it is offence that has been taken. Nobody's died. There's been no crime committed in the actual sense of a criminality. All it is somebody has been offended by what somebody has said. And straight away, the Metropolitan Police, mind you, have now just straight up and said, we believe you, we're going to help you. So carrying on, if you feel personally offended by this, we can arrange to come and see you to take a report, or you can report it here. Thanks. So the actual It's a Joke video by Jonathan Pye, reported as a social experiment, has basically just proved the fact that the Metropolitan Police, a London-based police office, is now about to try and actually take on people that are offended because of jokes. This is where I differ. This is absolutely ludicrous, to the point of how can the police in our country, in the comedian-centric points that we used to have as Only Fools and Horses, as 40 Towers, and so many other great comedy that has been exported around the world, how can we start being censored on jokes? Now, I can't wrap my head around that. I can't. I don't understand how personal offence has now been turned into a criminality, has now been turned into a crime in which you can actually spend prison time in. Now, I used to say I can understand that if somebody is racially abusing somebody, why beat them up? I could understand the point of it being a hate crime, because it's been done from a hateful perspective. I used to say I understand that, but to come out and just say that offensive words have now made me offended, so I want that person to go to prison? fuck you and fuck off. That's what I've got to say to that. Fuck you and fuck off. Because at the end of the day, my offence, I'm not giving you offence. I'm not trying to be offensive. But if you take offence by what I have to say and by what I'm doing, then fuck you, go get a life and don't watch the channel. It's not a problem. You can move on. It's not the end of the world. But yet, we want to convict people over the idea of giving offence. Which, let's be honest, offence cannot be given. Offence is never given. Offence is always taken. And the fact is that they're trying to take away the freedom of speech by being able to take it away by saying offensive jokes. The next bit will be offensive language and the way that we're allowed to report and the way that we're not allowed to report. If it carries on unopposed, we will be in a draconian experience. We will be run by an authoritarian dictatorship. It may even turn into a totalitarian one. And that's absolutely worrying. Now, I can't stress this enough, and I will say this one more time just for anybody that is watching it. This is a crime that's being committed by somebody having a fence taken by a joke. Let that sink in. In 2018, to use the left's vulgar argument of current year, but in 2018, we are now being offended by jokes and now taking people to court and prison over it because we're offended by words? Yeah. That's the level of evolution. I think somebody like Mr. Darwin would be turning in his grave going, go back, we fucked up, we made a mistake. And I think I'm going to leave the video right here on that point. The fact is that we have fucked up so much where we're now going to prosecute people on whether or not somebody is offended by what somebody might or might not have said, and in a context in what that person may or may not have meant. Now just think about that for a second from a law aspect. There are so many may not haves, this could happen, this might happen, that it would be to the point of, how would you even try to prosecute somebody like that? You would do what happened in Count Dankular's trial. You would say the context and the meaning in what you meant means nothing. And that's what they did to Count Dankula, to convict him of this amazing hate crime that offended I don't know who, but even so, just to rhyme, boo-hoo. It wouldn't matter. All it is an offence. Wait, sorry. No, it's not. All it is offensive. Did you see what I did there? Did you see that the fact that maybe the left are actually playing on the fact of wordplay and how we associate with different words? The fact that offensive might mean offence, and we might think that the two are linked together, when they are not. They don't even have anything to do in the same ballpark. Offence is when you actually break the law, and offensive is when you offend somebody. There is slight differences in those definitions, but yet I'm sure people would say that they are the same. The fact that people are now actually being convicted and threatening of being convicted, and in this actual video, the threat of actually being investigated for a satirical video, a comedian video, is absolutely ridiculous and absolutely redonkulous. There is no point in this ever taking hold, because if it does, my level of reporting is going to be severely hindered. Your level of spinking is going to be severely hindered. There needs to be some form of revolution. Wow, so that took a left turn very quickly, didn't it? That took a very hard, sharp left turn. No, there does need to be a form of a fight back, a point of being able to prove the fact that there is no such thing as hate speech. Yes, there is a hateful speech, and yes, there is offensive speech, but it still comes under the guidance and credence of free speech. You cannot take your moralistic points of views into the ideas of freedom of expression or freedom of speech. as long as it doesn't cause incitement to harm or incitement to cause harm or incitement to panic, then there's no reason to worry about anything. But the fact of, even if those things were considered hate speeches or hate speech, how in the world could you convict somebody from actually just telling a satirical joke? It's just a form of authoritarianism, and this is the level of our UK government that is now being pushed. I thought people, because I'm not going to say I did, because I didn't, but I thought people died for that fact. Millions of people across the whole of Europe and, in fact, the UK, died against authoritarian dictatorships that would tell you what you can and cannot read, what you can and cannot say, what you can and cannot do, what religion you can and cannot practice. Is that where we're going to? Is that where we're heading? Well, they do say the longest journeys start with a single step. So maybe it's a case of we're walking down this path and we don't even know it yet. And these are the measures that are being taken by the governments that are going to be swept under the carpet, where hardly any form of mainstream is even taking any note of it, because they agree with the premise. Because, you know, offence and being offended is the same thing. With that being said, I'm going to end the video as I tried to do at the beginning, but went on to a diatribe. But I feel that it needed to be said. So, thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this video and to this channel, and please don't forget to share this video. With that being said, thank you very much. I bid you adieu. I bid you farewell. Take care for now. Bye bye.